Hey, friends and family of the Facebook world. How are you? I mentioned that I was going to go live today at 7 o'clock to talk about a few things. Give you guys some time to connect if you'd like. And thank you for doing so. I don't know how to get to the live. How do you get to it from somebody else's account? I am. I'm there. It's on? Yeah. Okay. So I first off want to say thank you to every one of you. I know we got a lot going on right now. It's pretty tough. Has been for a while, and definitely sending some love and light all over, but specifically to the communities that are really, in war right now, and also in a lot of turmoil and pain and grief. So that's number one. Keeping you lifted up, definitely, and praying for the families as well as everybody that is touching, because it is. Thank you for joining. Engage with me on my posts. Talk a lot about relationships. Relationships are very important. I was telling somebody outside of money making the world go round. Relationships absolutely has the power to make even that go around. Relationships are very important, and so I appreciate your perspective and your right to your own mind. And I appreciate you adding that, whether it's for me or not, it's for somebody. Thank God we don't all think alike. So basically, I haven't gotten on yet, so I don't know what's going on. My daughter's helping me because I'm almost 40. She can get this stuff. So I kind of wanted to talk about the situation with Russell Wilson's post, and his 6th birthday comment to Baby Future. And I noticed that it got a lot of, commentary about it, a lot of shares. And I read through a lot of the comments, and I was curious about it. And the reason being is because at this particular point, depending on what your setup is, more than likely, if you aren't with the person you're going to be with or you had children with for the rest of your life, then it's a high chance with the high divorce rates and separation that we will be in blended families and having to co-parent. So these are things that don't necessarily come with a manual. And these are things that I believe we're going to need to talk more about. And I think it's absolutely important because what's at stake is the little people that are involved in between the co-parenting aspect and when we start blending the families. And I know that there were some people who felt in opposition to Russell, which was he went too far, and that he needed to stay in his lane. And I think specifically the comment was, he gave a whole little thing, and Russell is a lot more expressive as a guy, and about his family and his love for Sierra. So, to me, it just kind of was par for the course. But he said at the end, "Daddy loves you," and I think that's what was highlighted in the post that I saw. And then you had people who didn't have any issue with it at all. And those people felt like, hey, Russell's been in Baby Future's life since he was little. Since he was a baby, actually, he's doing for that family. He's been there for him, and it would appear that there may be some absence from, actually Baby Future's father, which is Future. We don't know to the degree, but by all means, social media looks like he's very present, meaning he being Russell Wilson. So I just wanted to give space for those viewpoints of you all who want to share. If you actually are experiencing it, if you had issues with it, what kind of things, if you had issue with his post or you didn't, why didn't you? I know that there was a few people who didn't and a few people who did, both men and women. And then kind of where do the kids come in to that? I will start off and kind of share with you about my situation, which is I was raised in a blended family from about 7 or so and maybe about 15 when we got, our other siblings and things. But I am a product of a blended family. At some point in my history of relationships, I have had my own blended family, and now I have even another portion of that aspect. So just something to consider if you are single and you're dating, and you have children from another parent, like what's that going to look like for you? And also, in addition to all of these things, is how social media actually plays into it. Because honestly, even though, we see that this topic is being discussed in terms of Russell and Sierra's situation with Future, this is not new. I can think of when Halle Berry was with Eric Benet and how she expressed her love for their daughter. I think her name was India. Could be wrong. Don't fact check me. And also Will and Jada's situation with Trey and Cherie. Obviously, Russell Simmons himself had other children and with other women before he got with his wife. So this is not anything new. The list can go on. I think now it's just an interesting topic, and I think that I know quite a few people who didn't have a problem with the post at all, and I know I've talked to a few people who absolutely felt like he had went too far. So that's basically what we're going to be talking about, and ask questions. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my situation real briefly. So I do, have a daughter, obviously, I have two co-parents, and one is a really good co-parenting relationship. One is maybe not the best, but we make it work. And, I was separated from my child, and I understand that the situations may be different, but nonetheless, the object of it for me is really the concern of, our daughter. So at some point there was some, very visible things that would indicate that my child was very much loved by someone else. And I will not sit up here and lie to you. It was very difficult at first. It was very difficult. And honestly, I can't even see a lot of it. But I was getting feedback of it. And, I think what was difficult for me, because I was trying to establish a bond, being that I had just came home. And at some point, and it took a couple years, not to say that I was always angry, because I didn't have the visibility of it. And I'm also guessing maybe Future doesn't. But nonetheless, you have people that know people, and you congregate, and that's just how that goes. And so at some point, I made the decision that it was very important that I didn't harbor any feelings, and understand that it didn't matter what was posted, said. And not only that, I mean, there's enough love for this child to have enough love from everybody. Like it just can't be too much love. So if that is, their position, I'm grateful to a degree, because we all know there's situations where it is very rough with stuff with other parents and co-parenting, where there's a sense of a jealousy, there's a sense of like some tension in those setups. So I don't necessarily get that, and I'm grateful for that. At that time when I did have issue with it, my issue was specifically like going a little bit overboard, and I think that's probably what people were saying with Russell's comment, in his post. And the other thing is to consider is it's not like Baby Future's on social media. I mean, if he is, it's because somebody shows him. I doubt he's on there with his own page. I don't know. It's possible, but I hope not. And so that for myself was something at some point I was like, you know what? It's really not that deep. And the reason why I became not that deep is because it wasn't anything that could change the fact that I was her mother. Not a title, nothing. DNA was going to be the same on the birth certificate. It wasn't going to change. Can't adopt, even if it could, it wouldn't change the fact that not only did I birth her, I gave her life and continue to give her life because I'm in her life. So what was more important to me was to become present every time, the quality of the time, and making sure that we had the time. And that was not a distinguishing factor for her at a certain point. I even believe she may have felt more comfortable at some point calling her mom. Wasn't going to debate that, wasn't going to fight about that. It was very clear that she knew who her mother was. And that was just honestly a step in maturity and a whole lot of prayer. So that's my thoughts on that. And is it a problem for me now? Not anymore. Not one little bit. And she's good, which is most important. She is good. She's happy. She doesn't feel any beef from me or any tension or that energy, that frequency that comes off when you feel some kind of way. Kids feel it. And she doesn't feel, any of that. So, you see any questions, Rihanna? Let me have them. Can you okay, get that for me. So get it for me so I can see the questions. So I'm gonna ask a couple questions. Russell does routinely express his feelings for his family, baby future included. I think he's been doing that for quite some time. And so, what about his birthday message on IG really ruffled favors? Just muted. Ruffled feathers. And I think it was the idea that some people still do believe in step parents, stepfather, stepmom. There are people, I don't know if you are included, that do stepmom, stepbrother, half brother, half sister. I think, at this point, maybe a few families are probably a little bit more relaxed with that. I have siblings that I do not call my half brothers or sisters. They are my brothers and sisters, honestly. So that's what I call them. As far as my dad's wife now, I've always called her by her first name, was never an issue. And quite frankly, when we were growing up, she would actually introduce us as her kids, So one of those, that does happen. And wanted to know how y'all felt about it. And I can tell you how I feel about it. I think it's going to be up to how comfortable the kids are. And honestly, at some point as an adult, I would tell you what I would do. I would have to remove my feelings from compromising me putting my child in the middle. It might not happen overnight, but you can do it. Got faith in you. Because at some point, I don't want the kid trying to stumble over my child trying to stumble over who is what and what place they serve. It could be it puts the kid in the middle, and that I didn't want that. It was very important that she didn't feel any kind of way going back and saying this and trying to figure it out and all of the other stuff. And it can get rough. So for me, I had to at some point take myself out of that. Whether you'll be able to do that, and if somebody's trying to be intentional, I don't know. I will say this. Necessarily the heartfelt message, again, Russell is a very expressive person, always has been, kind of going to be. But I do have this question. He had been married before. I wonder, had he had children with his ex-wife, would it still be the level of same sentiment? Meaning, would he communicate on social media in the way that he does about, baby future if he had children from his ex-wife? Also, would he be okay with his ex-wife remarrying and somebody else being in the picture and basically doing the exact same thing in terms of their expression on social media and other public platforms about how much, they love the child and, daddy and so on and so forth. I think that's something to consider. And also consider the age, because I think one comment said, if the baby's young and, at some point, even if the parent is coming around, they may, if they've been in their life for a while, it just may be more comfortable, especially if there's other kids that are older than that child that's going to hear mom and dad, and they're just going to call them that if they hear other kids doing that. So I guess that really depends on the age. Y'all let me know. Let's see here. I didn't see anything. Let me know, Shay. How do you think Future announcing that he has no issue with Russell's post? He basically, when he was asked, he had no issue with it. He did his small, his post. I don't say it was small. I think it was just straight how he gets down. I don't think it was a whole lot going on. We call him his twin. And, his son is blessed. It looks like he is in a loving family. Does that change the conversation? So if Future said, hey, I didn't have any issue with that. Glad my son is happy and doing well. Love my twin. Would that have deaded the whole post and any questions? Probably not. Probably not. Because honestly, I noticed that I did some research, and this has been going on since a long time ago. Like, I think Charlamagne the God commented on how inappropriate it was a long time ago before Sierra and Russell even got married. So it's kind of been a conversation, and he feeling like he wasn't in his lane then. Fast forward, they married on their second child, and he's still doing the same thing. Don't think it's going to change. And so, if Future actually came out like, hey, I'm good with it, we still gonna talk about it. What's gonna change? I know Future got a lot going on right now. Y'all pray for him. Keep that brother in some prayers, because I mean, guess what? At some point, he has the ability, like anybody else, to change course and self-correct. And I'm praying that we all have it, the change for the better, because it just serves him better and his family and all his seeds in his line. So that's how I feel about that. So let me know what your thoughts on that. Now the question is, does the parent have a responsibility to their blended family or their spouse to prevent a child from enduring emotional or psychological harm from the biological parent? And the reason why I ask that is because you may know people yourself, or it could be you, where you have moved on with your spouse, and the other parent may come in and out of the child's life, and that could cause some issues. Their absence in the child life may cause them to act up, withdraw, or different things like that. And is it just the sole responsibility of both biological parents to deal with that and address it? Or since you are now with that actual, you and you're the co-parent, and your spouse and the child is living with you all, how would you resume any responsibility? If so, I'd like to know what. If not, I'd like to know what. Now, I'm going to give you an example from my experience, because I'm not going to ask y'all or something I wouldn't actually answer myself. At one point in my blended family, one of my kids I was not the actual, I was the step parent, if you will. We'll just say that for the sake of making the distinguishing factors today. And I knew that that he wanted to see his mother. And I knew that there was some issue between the mother and the father. And I inquired about being able to take him to see his mother. And it was important for me to do that because the father made it very clear he wasn't going to, and the mother didn't have any way to get to it. So I did try to facilitate that as much as I could. And even in times I had to go pick him up. And to me, that was something that, a lot of people don't want to get in the middle of that. And let me tell you, I get it. But it wasn't an issue. And also, I wanted him to go see his mother. And so let me know what your thoughts are on that. Would you get involved or not?
We have a question from Andre Cooper.
Hey, Andre. What's up, Coop?
He said, Marissa, do you believe the two men should talk it out?
That's a tough one. I think that at some point, I hope that they can. I think it's really... I think because of how things started, it made it difficult for the conversation to happen. And all this is speculation because we're going by what was reported. Like, we are not literally sitting in their phones and have wiretaps on their phones. It would be interesting, but thank God it's illegal. But I think it can happen at some point. And I think that, maybe Russell... just my gut feeling, at some point Russell may be like, maybe I could have toned it down a little bit, just a little bit initially. But I think because he's always been there, and Sierra was, filed lawsuits for child support, and the fact that he hadn't seen him, I think that just made it rough. And seeming that Sierra was, obviously Russell was married to, and seeing that was an issue for her, and it was his wife, I think it just made it more difficult. And then they ended kind of rough. However, I think it's a good idea to at least just have that. And I know a couple of guys been like, listen, I know they've had to talk with the guy. Y'all know the talk I'm talking about. You built your mom, her mom. I don't care nothing about that, but this is my child, and y'all know the threat y'all do. You know what I'm talking about. So that is the conversation. I do hope they would be able to talk it out. I don't know. Maybe with some mediation. Because I just don't see them two getting on the phone and being like, so listen, for the last 5 years, you've been wilding on social. I mean, like, how that's going to go. and then Russell say something like, well, where you been? I don't know. So it's possible. Anything's possible. But I think it'd be a good idea for the long run. And I think with Baby Future, if he saw that there wasn't any friction and they actually could be around each other, and it's possible that they have, we just haven't seen it. It goes a long way with the kids. It makes them comfortable. And let me tell you how I know. Because I could tell you my mother and my dad's wife have sat in the same house, the same, so it just hasn't been an issue. It was never that antagonistic energy. It just wasn't like that. And I'm blessed for that. I did not have that to see. And the reason why I can say that is because I've had the example. I lived in an example which they set an exceptional example of how to co-parent. So I think it's possible, and maybe mediation at first to kind of figure out, how they can work that out between the both of them, because it's enough love for him. But I think there also needs to be, some level of respect, and that gets them to. It's up to them to kind of establish that. That's my thoughts. That's it. Okay. Let's see here. In a co-parenting situation similar to Sierra and Future, as the biological parent, would you talk to and discourage your child from calling the step parent mommy or daddy? That's a good question. Let me just say this. Nobody ever talked to us about that specifically growing up. I could tell you 100%. My mother didn't say, don't call her that. That was just never a something she said. I think I might have asked her if we did, or maybe, but I know for sure she never said don't do it. I can tell you for myself, I never told my child to not do it. I knew that she was doing it, but I never told her specifically to not do it. So I know that there's some people who have said that to their child. And I've also seen them struggle with not calling them that, especially if they've established that name for a while and they struggle. And then when they're in front of the actual biological parent, they're struggling trying to share information with them because they're saying my dad or my mom, and the actual mom or dad is there. To me, that's just going to put the child in the middle. That's a real tough one. I'm not even going to sit up here and lie to you and tell you that's easy. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be 100% honest. It's like a dagger the first time you hear it. It's probably going to be like that, stab you in the heart, twist it, dead the next couple of times. But after a while, I think you have to have a lot of conversations. I can say with myself, and I was like, it didn't, because it wasn't like they were not calling me mom. Now, if they wasn't, I don't know. Ask somebody, y'all chime in. If you had your child come in later on and they called you, something else as opposed to what they were calling the other, the step parent, they actually called them dad or mom. And then did they refer to you as dad or mom? I don't know. My situation was, it's like, I know it's mommy or mommy on my side. And I think maybe it may be mom over there too. Again, I couldn't even tell you, and that's been years ago because I don't ask. But that would be something to think about. And I don't know if you need to come to an agreement with your other parent and be like, hey, I don't like it. I don't know. I don't know how you would do that. In my situation, it just was not. I mean, you can't control what goes on in somebody else's house anyway. And that step parent has a negative connotation to it. So some people don't necessarily like it. But I get it. If you don't, if you do, I think it's just a matter of preference. It didn't bother me. But for me, I know that she does not call me by my first name. She calls me mommy or whatever. So that's that. Let's see here. Let me ask you this about posting. If your circumstances were similar to Sierra and Future, and you took issue with the posting, would you choose to address the other parent, or just focus on your child's well-being, or both? So if you constantly seen the the post and it was going out and it was a lot of issue with it from the child's perspective, then would you even say anything? Would you address it to the co-parent and say, hey, I've seen some stuff, or somebody's brought me some stuff. People screenshot your post and your text in a heartbeat, and just be like, hey, this is what I seen. And if you saw it, would you actually say something?
I have a question
What's the question?
from Art Washington.
Hey, Art.
Have you ever seen where the blended and the divorced parent actually worked?
Worked. Mm-hmm. Yes. I'm a product of it. I know a few other people that they've made it a point to do it, and they're not high profile celebrity people either. They're just people who say, they're not, high five slapping kumbaya with the other parent in the blended family, but they are all about making sure the kids are good. Let me give you an example of how I actually had it work. When I had the blended family with my other kids, and we were throwing a birthday party for one of the kids, I wanted to make sure that their moms came to the house, and we all socialize and be together, because it was important that the other parent get to celebrate that child's birthday. So right now with my youngest child, it rotates. The years rotate, and that can be tough because it's sometimes where they just want both. They don't want to have to choose or be like, oh, I gotta wait till, and get, it rotates, and so the time is split, and that can be difficult. I believe it made a huge difference for him at that time to make sure that his mom was there. And I would encourage that. I actually had a lady who was there, was like, she couldn't do it. She told me flat out at the party, you was okay with that? And I was like, why? Why wouldn't I be? It wasn't a threat to me. And even if it was, here's the deal. People going to do what they want to do. You can track them down all you want, get you some FBI gear. All right. Turn into the CIA if you like. That's a full-time job. And once you start doing that, you might as well go ahead and go to the academy and sign up for that, because I'm not doing that. That's just a lot of work. But it was more important, and I never, I just honestly didn't even think about it. And the reason being is because in my blended family co-parenting situation, my mother, father, and my dad's wife, stepmom, if you will, did it great. Just they did it great. So that's what I have to see as an example. Any other questions?
Questions for now?
Cool beans. We getting ready to wrap this up. I'm not going to be on your phones all night long because there's so much going on. I know you want to tag on to CNN and all that other stuff, but I think it was important to talk about this. I think what I will leave you with is the reason why these topics are so important, because our family units are really important to survival of community and us to be a collective unit, like unity at its best. And as long as I feel disconnected and adversarial with my whoever it is, it just makes it easier for people in positions of power and wealth to exploit it. And then I wouldn't want a situation where, because of that tumultuous setup between co-parenting and blended families, to put a child in a position where they're insecure and they don't feel safe and they don't feel heard and they don't feel valued, and then they start seeking outside things and they become products of an environment in a negative capacity, and those things don't work for them. I think that's one of the things we're really gonna have to get to the root of, because a lot of the issues think about, even some of our issues really go back to our first relationships with our parents. And so by denying another child that relationship, regardless, as long as they're not hurting or harming, I just think that's something we're gonna have to work out. It ain't easy. There is no book on it. I wish there were more people of color facilitators and mediators that could do it. because it's necessary. It's necessary to really help have healthy adults. Not to say you can't just if they're not involved. We know that that's possible, but I just believe it's great to be able to have both of them available in as best as you can in the capacity that serves the child first.
We have a question.
Yep.
From John L. Cooper. Brisa, isn't it better that the biological parents met the stepmom or stepfather prior to putting labels on the co-parenting?
Yeah, it would have been nice. It would have been nice. And let me tell you, gosh, y'all asking some good questions. I actually have had it happen. Been in a situation myself where it's like, oh, stepmom now. What do you do? And it's not easy. It is best. I just think it's more, at least you feel valued enough to say, I respect that you may or may not like it, but let me just tell you what this is beforehand, so people aren't cut off guard, But it would be better, and in those situations where they're absent, and there's nothing that you can do about that. If you can't connect with the person and they're not around, you can't hold your life up waiting to try to figure out with the co-parent or step-parent or whoever is going, I guess the other biological parent is actually going to show up somewhere and be, amicable to a meeting. That may or may not happen. But if there's an attempt based on the relationship and the ability to have communication reasonably, I think it should. I think it should. So, any other?
Questions I see right now.
Okay. I'll be doing more about these because relationships is their work, and I think that one of the things I will admit to is that you don't want to be on the honeymoon. What's the word I'm looking for? It's like if you're on that honeymoon chase, it's almost like re-upping every 6 to 8 months, depending on when the representative leave. And you're on that honeymoon just kick, looking for the next honeymoon, or whatever the case, or looking for it where it's no problem. It just requires some work and, how you want to show up. And when you're talking about kids involved, it's just really like sucking up a lot of that stuff that bothers you. Not to say that you push it down. I'm not saying you don't even communicate with somebody about your frustrations. But maybe having somebody who's an elder, somebody who is not only an elder, but they're a wise elder, and somebody that you can communicate with that may have experienced it, that can offer you some wisdom along with understanding. In addition to, the piece of you that puts the child first. And always remember this, kids know. They 100% know they can only be fooled for so long. They can only be kept for so long. It just has a way of showing up, and they see things and want to know things regardless. So, that's all I have for the blended families, the single parent, the co-parenting, the coexisting of all these children and everything.
We have a question from Mike Harris.
Mike Harris has a question. Before I go, hey, Mike.
The relatives deal with the divide?
Mike wants to know, how should the relatives deal with the divide? I will tell you how my relatives dealt with the divide. And I'm just, y'all putting me out there. So I'm going to be transparent. It was important that they kept the focus on the family that they were around and the actual child. So let me give you an example. In my situation, we don't discuss the co-parent in a negative way. If the co-parent is discussed, it's because she brings the co-parent up and we all listen and, oh, really? Yeah. And if that's actually done, honestly, do they like the other co-parent? Not at all. Now, I don't know if that's ever going to change, and they don't have to. But what's important is not allowing what we know as adults and how we feel about, the other co-parent and the things they do, if they're still doing things, to be witnessed or heard in conversation by that child. Because if you're talking about a child's parent in front of them, you're talking about them. It is what it is. So, You wait till they're gone. If you got to get it off your chest and y'all have a meeting in the ladies' room, you know how we do. Be like, girl, let me tell you, text. I don't know, but it's just something you might want to not do around a kid. And then not only that, just even think about how much you won't even have a conversation about the other person. Like, do you really want them in your cellular like that, your level? Like, you know what I mean? Like, on a level of, like, they irk you, because it ends up coming out. So, it's one thing they be like, let me tell you about X, Y, and Z. And we're like, yeah, that's just part, that's what they do. Because we human, we may do that. Or the other person may be, well, maybe they thought this, or did you think about this, or how they may be going through this. That's a possibility as well, because I have people in my life like that. But as far as, them, the relatives and how treated just like she, is she's treated no differently, and that the other co-parent is not brought up in conversation. And even if they are, nothing negative or, detrimental, because that's just not helpful to, us in our spirits truly, and then also how it affects her. This is not something I'm willing to sacrifice. So that's that. So thank y'all for joining me. I'm gonna get off here because it's been a minute, and hit me up with some stuff in my inbox if you have other things you want to talk about. Y'all have a God bless day. Peace out.